Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox, one of the founders of LSATdemon.com and our weekly podcast, Thinking LSAT. With me today is Erik Johansen, one of our amazing teachers at LSAT Demon. Erik, we have an email here from Megan.
Megan writes, do November LSAT takers need to do anything to avoid adverse effects of the time change the week before the test? Megan. It is true. The clocks are changing this weekend. I will try to get this episode edited and out in time for that to happen so that we can respond. I think this is a great example of the sort of thing that a lawyer would want to focus on, which is every single little detail.
Yeah.
We want to try to maximize okay, if there's any question that this might affect me, should I think about it? Should I put thought and effort into addressing this as a thing that might affect? So I think it's lawyerly of you, Megan, to ask this question. I also think it's a good example of something that should not matter to you for your test performance.
I mean, you want to make sure that you show up on time.
Yeah.
But in the fall, we fall back, so you get an extra hour.
Yeah, this is also the time change is also happening several days before the November LSAT
And it's
begins.
happening several days before. And important to point this out to people, because even really smart people that I know struggle with this issue. Did you know, Erik, that there's not actually more or less daylight in the day when the time changes?
This is news to me, Nathan. What?
Well, I got a golf buddy. We try to make these trips, right? We take like 4 or sometimes 8 guys to go play golf for a weekend. And we like to play a lot of golf when we're there. So we'll play 36 holes on Saturday for sure. And to play 36 holes, a round of golf takes 4 hours. So 36 holes of golf is going to take 8 hours plus however much time you need in between the rounds. But even on the shortest day of the year, there are still 8 hours of daylight in the day, and you could comfortably get in 36 holes of golf if you plan accordingly. But my buddy always sends these emails or text messages to us like, well, okay, so we want to make sure that we go on the weekend right before the time change. He always brings the time change into it as if the time change is it's like, no, I get it that in December there are fewer hours of daylight than there are in July. That much that's established, and that has nothing to do with the time change. That has to do with the seasons, and the days are a lot longer in the summertime. So yeah. I totally get that. But the difference between the weekend of the time change and the weekend before or the weekend after the time change, it's like all that matters is, are we going to be teeing off for our first round at 8 a.m. or are we going to be teeing off for our first round at 7 a.m.? It doesn't actually matter. The sun is going to be at the same point in the sky.
Right.
The temperature is going to be the same. The only thing that's going to be different is the clock is going to say a different number. And that, yeah, I mean, maybe it takes people a little bit of adjustment time or whatever. But no, this is funny. I've been doing this for 15 years now, and I have never heard anything about, I've never heard a student asking me about the time change before.
So you have heard plenty of questions about sleep, though.
Oh,
I know from podcast listening experience, and that sleep is obviously important, and people have hangups about sleep the night or the nights before.
Do.
Any advice that you have for those looking to get their sleep right in the build up to the test?
Letting the sun dictate your schedule more than letting the clock dictate your schedule is a really good plan. So I think one thing that could help Megan and everybody out there who's suffering from any sleep related issues is to kind of get in the habit, like probably go to bed earlier when the sun's going down. That's like time for our bodies. We evolved to like go to sleep when the sun goes down. We sleep more in the winter, by the way, because we've evolved in this way. And we fuck ourselves with all of our devices, super bright LED TVs, super bright screens that you're holding in your hand.
Lying in bed with it right in your face.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference. I recently switched at night. I don't look at my phone in bed. Instead, I look at my Kindle. and I have a paper white, and I have it set on the, the warmest possible light,
Yep.
but dark mode, and the light level is way down, and I can read it just fine, but I'm in a dark room, and I it's quiet and it's dark, and I'm reading on my Kindle, and it puts me to sleep. And that's
Yeah.
a I would recommend for anybody who's worried about stuff like this or worried about sleep or whatever. Yeah, focus on your devices. Give yourself a cold, if possible. Cold helps a lot, by the way. Colder rooms help a
Hmm.
lot. Cold, dark, quiet, and be really careful about blasting your face with blue light from all of our screens all the
Yeah.
time.
I would also say those are all great tips. I would also say that if you know that it takes you a while to adjust to a time change because you've been through this before, preempt it. Start like go in advance. Start thinking about the time change ahead of time. I do this when I fly. I've been on quite a few
Mm,
flights across time zones in my life, and I learned that it seems to help me a little bit if I can set my watch to the times. Like I'll have my phone so I know what the local time
hmm
actually is, but I'll set my watch a day or two ahead of time to
mm.
whatever the my destination time is. So in the middle of the day, I'll just look and I was like, oh, look, it's 2 o'clock at night. I should be aware of that. Um, and I don't know, I just found that helpful to just be mindful of the fact that, hey, in a couple days, this right now is actually going to be the middle of the night. And then, like, the moment I step on the plane, I'm telling myself, okay, it is now. I am now in that next
To
time
be
zone.
clear, this is not New York to LA. This is more like
More like international travel,
Europe
but
or
even
Asia.
I mean, even crossing the country, three
Yeah.
hours difference, it can make a difference to just be mindful of it.
Yeah.
I guess the point is just if you want to start going to bed an hour earlier and waking up an hour earlier a few days ahead of time, probably won't hurt.
Except for it's the other way around, right? Because fall back, so the clocks actually go back. So what you're really going to want to
It's
do
I'm just gonna wake up that morning and see what time it is and and adjust
I
as I need to. Then
you're going to get an extra hour at the fall time change.
okay,
So if
cool.
you wanted to adjust earlier, you'd be setting your clock back an hour. So you'd actually be staying up a little later and getting up a little later in advance of this thing.
If you want to,
I mean, my biggest piece of advice, Megan, is don't worry about shit like this.
yeah,
It's lawyerly, as Eric brought it up at the beginning. It's lawyerly to be worrying about every little tiny thing, but you also need to develop. You've got to play with the LSAT. You cannot give the LSAT so much respect. So, if it were me or Ben or Eric, if our alarm went off at 3:30 a.m., like maybe there was an LSAT Demon hazing as part of our interview going
oh my
forward,
goodness,
we're going to haze people. We're going to start calling them emergency at 3:30 in the morning, and we're going to
quick, do
give
an
them an
LSAT
LSAT
right now.
test. Oh yeah, a full test. But I mean, because I'm pretty confident in this that people who are good at the test, it's not gonna really it's just not gonna matter that much.
You can
You're
get it
gonna
done.
you're gonna be like, "Oh, this sucks. Can I have a cup of coffee?" "Yeah, okay, you can have a cup of coffee." "All right." You know, get to work because it's a little game that you're very good at playing, and it's kind of fun, and I think you're gonna get into it pretty quickly if you're actually prepared. Megan, if you're not actually prepared, then something like this time change is a very convenient scapegoat for you.
Mm.
So I would be honest with myself. Are you happy with your practice test scores? Because if not, you have no business taking the November LSAT. But if you are happy with your practice test scores, then I give you my blessing to take the November LSAT and my assurance that the time change is not going to affect you one bit. All right. Thank
Cool.
you, Megan. Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.